CEO challenges janitor's son to a chess match as a joke, but discovers an incredible genius. Ethan had always been a ghost in his high school, gliding through the bright halls where laughter echoed like a distant symphony. At 16, with a sharp mind that unraveled equations and theories with ease, he often felt invisible, not just among his classmates, but in the very fabric of his own life. The son of the janitor, he carried the weight of his family's financial struggles like an old, heavy coat. Each day, he loomed in the background, and every humiliating glance from others dug deeper into his insecurities. But amid the whispers hiding behind those bright lockers, one thing ignited a flicker of hope within him: chess. 3 afternoons a week, he'd escape to the local library, spending hours moving pieces around an old board, allowing knights and pawns to fight battles in his mind. It was there, crammed in between encyclopedias and novels, that he found an identity apart from the whispers, understanding the elegance of every move and countermove. But as he faced the world, he shrank into something less than he was. Then, unexpectedly, at his mother's workplace, the corporate headquarters where she cleaned, the universe turned on its head. Tom, the CEO, ambled over with his usual swagger, laughter spilling from his lips, as if the whole room existed solely for his amusement. "Hey, janitor's son," he declared, the room falling into a ripple of chuckles. "How about a game of chess, just to show me how you plan to take over the world from that little corner of the library?" The laughter rang hollow in Ethan's ears. Was it all a joke? Something about the air prickled with disdain, and anger roiled within, catching him off guard. His yearning to step out of the shadows warred with the fear of further ridicule, yet a fierce need for dignity sparked. He accepted, the challenge slicing through his insecurities like a knife. Before they began, Ethan's heart raced. Sweat dampened his palms as he set the pieces, and every sneer felt like a spotlight focused on his smallness. Yet determination burned deep within. This could be more than a game. With every pawn he moved, Ethan wasn't just playing against a corporate giant. He was swimming upstream against a societal tide that always told him he was unworthy. He caught a glimpse of his mother watching from the side, her pride radiating even in a sea of condescension. Each move was laden with calculated intensity, moments creeping into the silent room heavy with tension. Laughter diminished as Ethan played with nerve, laying out strategies with surprising complexity. Tom's facade faltered, a crack in that veneer of smug superiority breaking just a little. The room whispered, faces wearing expressions of disbelief. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels that... If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Suddenly, it felt as if every move he made was charged with a weighty purpose. The pieces were no longer mere wood and plastic, but symbols of defiance against the harshness he had known as the janitor's son. As Tom leaned forward, clenching his jaw, Ethan could sense the unraveling of the narrow beliefs that held them both captive. Would Tom confront his biases, or would he retreat into denial? The board, adorned with pieces standing at attention, seemed a battleground for far more than kings and queens. As the ultimate check approached, an electrifying question hung in the air. Would the room's dynamics change? Would Tom stand corrected, or would he cling to the prestige he believed defined him? Ethan prepared for the final moves, knowing this was more than just a game. It was a chance to rewrite their narratives, both shackled by the reflections of their lives. Everyone stood at the edge, breaths caught in anticipation. The outcome was not merely a victory for him, but a confrontation of identities, with one boy's brilliance poised to shatter every preconceived notion. Ethan's fingers trembled as he reached for a knight, the wooden piece feeling impossibly heavy. He was acutely aware of the weight of the moment, not just the impending victory or defeat, but the potential shift in perceptions that could lead him out of the shadows. The hushed crowd held their collective breath as silence enveloped the room, each person caught in Ethan's orbit of determination. Tom, still poised at the edge of arrogance, eyed the board with narrowed focus, unaware that the tide was shifting not just in the game, but within himself. The pieces felt more than strategic devices to Ethan. They symbolized everything he'd endured. He envisioned each piece as a fragment of his struggle, each move a defiance against the narrative that had always pushed him down. "You think you're clever, don't you?" Tom shot, breaking the tension as he leaned back with faux nonchalance. "Every smart kid thinks he can beat the businessman." Ethan's breath caught, a surge of anger rising in him. The condescending tone reminded him of the mockery faced in hallways, the whispers underscoring his existence. But now the bitterness morphed into determination. Why should he hide? Why should he continue to play small in the presence of his biggest opponent yet? His thoughts raced as he considered Tom's latest move. Each decision felt significant. It seemed like more was at stake than just a game. The pieces transformed into representations of social status, stereotypes, and biases. Ethan was not just playing chess, he was challenging a worldview. One agonizing move at a time. "I'm not just some smart kid," Ethan asserted, surprising even himself with the confidence that ignited in his voice. The audience stirred, a low murmur passed through them. He calculated his next move, crafting a strategy not only to win, but to assert that he, too, deserved significance. With a quick flick of his wrist, he moved his queen forward, positioning her aggressively on the board. "Check," he declared, the words sounding more like a mantra than a mere announcement. Tom's face shifted, the bravado momentarily cracking. In that instant, Ethan saw a flicker of respect mixed with disbelief. Perhaps the CEO had underestimated him, as so many had before. The realization sent a ripple of thrill cascading through his spine. He was far from just the janitor's son. This was his moment of self-discovery, an unveiling of the mind that had been hiding beneath layers of doubt and humiliation. The pieces were now not merely instruments of play, but extensions of his identity. Suddenly, Ethan dared to imagine a future where he moved beyond his circumstances, where intelligence was celebrated regardless of the background from which it emerged. Tom, however, wasn't finished. He leaned over the board, eyes narrowing with renewed intensity. "You'll need more than intellect to win here. Don't lose sight of who you're dealing with." The challenge hung in the air. The confrontation was shifting. This was no longer just a game. It was a battle against humanity's deepest prejudices and assumptions. Ethan inhaled sharply, deciding that he would respond not only through strategy on the chessboard, but through the very essence of his actions. He was ready to defy the limitations imposed on him, ready to fight for his place beyond the shadows. Would he seize the moment for transformation? As the final moves approached, each piece on the board felt like a step toward a more significant change, not just in the game, but in himself. The audience held their breath, and Ethan sensed the momentum building within him. This was only the beginning. Their fates were hopelessly intertwined, and he was prepared to further unravel the layers of expectation. But as his mind locked on to the next move, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. "What happens if you lose, Ethan?" Ethan turned to see a classmate standing at the edge, her expression reflecting both challenge and curiosity. Did it matter? As little doubt leaked into his mind, one truth remained. No matter the outcome of the game, stepping into his power was a victory in itself. With that, the stage was set, not just for a game of chess, but for a deeper confrontation of worth and identity that loomed in the shadows. The answer was waiting just beyond the board. Ethan's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the match, but from the weight of the question posed. What happened if he lost? The thought reverberated through his mind, conflicting with both the fear of failure and the thrill of rediscovery. Glancing at the board, he measured his next move with intense focus, momentarily pushing aside the implications of defeat. The pressure coiled within him, transforming into a rigid determination. This game was an arena, the battlefield where victory and loss were not just outcomes but milestones in his transformation. He would utilize every moment, every decision, to signal to the world and himself that he was more than what others saw. Tom's fingers hovered over his own pieces, masking his unease with a feigned confidence. With every passing second, the game moved beyond mere pieces on a board. It captured the essence of their lives. Ethan's struggle against the stifling labels and derogatory assumptions. Tom's desperate need to cling to his superiority. "Your move," Ethan dared, his voice steady, inviting Tom to further expose his thinking. Their rivalry crackled with intensity, a delicate dance laden with existential weight. Ethan sensed a shift, a spotlight illuminating his evolution before the audience's eyes. He was no longer the invisible figure lingering in the corners, but rather the bold contender standing firm against the status quo. The crowd leaned in closer, their collective belief momentarily shifting toward him. Ethan's next calculated move pushed another piece forward, landing squarely in Tom's territory. "You seem to be underestimating the game," he shot back, a subtle challenge that slipped past his lips without hesitation. Stunned silence enveloped the arena as Tom's expression morphed, irritation flaring beneath the surface. The atmosphere transformed, crystallizing his mind while exposing Tom's every weakness. It felt as though both men were unveiling hidden layers. Ethan casting off the shroud of his past, and Tom grappling with the unsettling reality of a worthy opponent. With a fierce resolve igniting deep within him, Ethan embraced the idea that losing could also be a victory. It could mean learning, evolving, and growing stronger. Each move was steeped in significance, marking both a tactical engagement and a personal exploration. The audience now sensed a palpable tension, torn between the preconceived narratives they held and the unfolding possibility of a complete reversal. As tension mounted, Ethan stepped back mentally, taking a breath to allow clarity to wash over him. He recalled lessons learned from his father, lessons forged in resilience, perseverance, and dignity. Each sacrifice made, each late night scrubbing floors when he could be studying, prepared him for this moment. Ethan squared his shoulders, daring to imagine himself as a force no longer confined by fear or societal expectations. "I may not walk your walk or share your privilege, but here's what I've learned. Every obstacle is just another piece on the board, meant to be moved, captured, conquered." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, folding over each other in anxious energy. He had spoken that truth for himself and for those like him who'd been marginalized or unseen. Tom, visibly rattled by Ethan's words, grappled with the implications of losing to someone he had seen as beneath him. The tide of the game ebbed and flowed, not just in strategy, but in the very essence of who they were. Ethan leaned in closer, determination etched across his face. "Ready for your next move?" At that moment, an unexpected voice chimed again from the crowd. "Ethan, what will you do if you win?" Ethan's gaze flickered, narrowing on Tom's anxiety-laden visage. He sensed the stakes were climbing, the outcomes stretching into realms beyond just the game itself. Would there be room for both victory and vulnerability, acknowledgement and respect? Suddenly, the realization crashed upon him. With each move, he wasn't just redefining his worth. He was inviting the world to reconsider its prejudices. And with this thought, a powerful question hung in the air. Could he truly change not just his own narrative, but Tom's and theirs with one decisive victory? As the next turn approached, the board was set, the battle lines drawn, but the real question brewed quietly beneath. In this high-stakes game of chess, how would he redefine the rules of engagement? Ethan's heart beat like a drum, vibrating through the charged atmosphere around him. He saw Tom wrestling with his next move, the struggle etched deeply across his features. This wasn't just a chess game. It was a crucible for both of them, a testing ground for their ideologies, their aspirations, and their self-worth. Every second counted, and each move was weighted with both strategy and the unspoken dialogue of their lives. The challenge of facing Tom now transcended the game. Thoughts swirled in Ethan's mind. What if he won? What would it mean beyond the board? Would it be the opening of doors, or merely a momentary triumph to be swiftly overshadowed by the world's ever-watchful eye? The question lodged in his throat like a bitter seed, but one that also sparked a fierce determination within him. As he leaned toward the board, focusing intently on the pieces, he could feel both the weight of expectation and the lightness of hope. His fingers brushed the pawns, tokens of struggle, simplicity, and potential. "I've learned the power of small beginnings," he murmured to himself. Each pawn could become a queen, a testament to what he could achieve if he only dared to reach for it. With newfound resolve, he considered Tom's weaknesses, the cracks in his confident facade. Not only was it vitally important to outmaneuver him strategically, but also to showcase that intellect sprouted not solely from privilege, but from tenacity and grit. He was tired of existing in the shadows, of dimming his own light to appease the egos of others. Ethan's mind sharpened as he cast a quick glance to the audience. He caught a glimpse of familiar faces, some nodding with encouragement, others uncertain. They appeared spectral, yet embodying a mosaic of all the paths he could take. The moment was absolute stillness. Within that silence, his voice tremored again. "Chess reflects life, Tom. Every piece plays a role, but it's the player who decides the outcome." He exhaled, filled with a purpose that tinged his movements with urgency. Across the board, Tom's bravado wavered, but he quickly masked it with a smirk, pretending that Ethan's words didn't shake him. Ethan recognized the act. "It's not just about winning, is it?" he pressed, daring Tom to confront the implications of their confrontation. The room crackled with tension as the seconds ticked by. Ethan entrenched himself in his strategy, planning 2, 3, maybe 4 moves ahead. But amid the calculations lay something more profound, a deep desire to break free from the limitations imposed by their backgrounds. Each piece represented experiences that didn't define him, but illustrated his capacity for change and resilience. Then came Tom's move, a bold attempt to corner him, but Ethan anticipated it. He allowed the piece to make contact with his own, feeling the shift in power. "You underestimate me," Ethan said firmly, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Tom glared at him, his arrogance whittled down by the piercing reality of challenge. Ethan could sense Tom's need to reclaim dominance, to restore his narrative, but he wouldn't let that happen easily. A fire within him stoked with each exchange, catalyzing an evolution. He was not merely a participant anymore, he was shifting the paradigm. With determination, Ethan seized the moment, making a surprising move that disrupted Tom's plan entirely. The audience inhaled as one, a tide of astonishment rolling across their faces. In that instant, Ethan felt the truth of his potential. His strategies were not bound by expectation, but liberating in their expression. As the game progressed and the pieces began to dwindle from both sides, Ethan realized this match was not just about chess. It was about grappling with his own identity and paving the way for acceptance. He needed to solidify what victory would mean for both him and Tom, the recognition of merit beyond preconceived status. Suddenly, a question bubbled up from within, invoking every ounce of courage he had summoned. What if we could see each other beyond these pieces? What if this isn't just a game, but the first step towards something more meaningful? Tom hesitated, the edge of his confidence eroding as doubt seeped in. Unbeknownst to both of them, the crux of their confrontation leaned on the razor's edge of understanding. Ethan squared his shoulders, prepared to yield his final move, but before he executed it, he took a breath, ready to transcend just victory on the board. As he placed his finger on his queen, the words echoed through the silence. "Let's redefine what this means for both of us." The atmosphere tightened around them, the stakes now palpably higher than merely winning. Ethan sensed that this chess match could either forge a new narrative or crash under the weight of their past. The moment hung heavily in the air, both fearful and exhilarating. Could a game of chess turn into a profound conversation on respect and rivalry? What lay beyond this decisive moment, this pivoting? Continue this cycle of competition and watch it wear us down. Or we can step into a new narrative. I'm willing to take that risk. Will you? The pause hung thick, and the air around them pulsated with unspoken possibilities. Tom's gaze pierced through him, grappling with the rawness of Ethan's challenge. "I don't know," Tom finally admitted, the bravado slipping away to reveal a glimmer of apprehension mingled with curiosity. This could expose me. Or it could set you free," Ethan urged gently, feeling a welling of empathy rise like an unseen tide. "Let's carve our own destinies, not dictated by privilege or the past." The scenario had shifted from a simple chess match to a profound reckoning. The board now represented their lives, a tapestry woven with the threads of expectation, ambition, pressure, and the fear of stepping into the unknown. Ethan felt as though they were standing at the brink, precariously poised between the comfort of the familiar and the uncertain lessons that awaited them. Tom hesitated, caught in a web of conflicting desire and self-perception. Perhaps the crux lay not in the moves on the board, but in the unspoken choice hovering over them. Would they dare to explore this new dynamic? As Tom's gaze faltered, filled with a flicker of something resembling hope, Ethan realized the pivotal juncture ahead. He leaned forward, thoughts racing. Launching into this new trust, this vulnerability, could either bridge an unthinkable partnership or unravel the carefully constructed perceptions they both had clung to for so long. "What will your next move be, Tom?" Ethan challenged. "Will it be one of defiance or transformation?" The encounter settled into an electric stillness, waiting to ignite. With both their futures hanging in the balance, one decisive choice could unleash the potential cascade of change. Ethan's heart thundered in anticipation. The moment of truth loomed, a singular dive into the unknown that might define them both for eternity. Would they seize the opportunity to evolve, or remain enshrined in the past? Time hung thick in the air, desperate for resolution. Ethan's breath caught as the silence enveloped them. The world outside faded into an unimportant blur, the focus of his existence shifting squarely onto Tom's conflicted visage. Did Tom feel the weight of the moment too? Or was this yet another encounter for him? A moment to memorize, exploit, then forget? Ethan's mind raced, processing every second, every potential outcome. This was no ordinary chess match. It was a confrontation of identities, beliefs, and the very foundational constructs of their lives. His thoughts spiraled into self-reflection. Who had he become in this competitive dance? A mere pawn in someone else's game of strategy? Or was he finally ascending into a role that he had long thought relegated for others? The knight, adventurous and unpredictable. With a sudden pang of conviction, Ethan decided to anchor himself in his own truth. "Tom," he began, steadying his voice, "this isn't about winning or losing for me anymore. I'm less interested in the final checkmate and more in who we might become by exploring the depths of our influences. I need you to understand, our paths don't need to diverge here. What if they converged instead?" The flicker of uncertainty in Tom's eyes was palpable, a subtle testament to the misconceptions they'd both nurtured. It was a vulnerability that resonated deeply with Ethan, whose life had shaped him into an outsider constantly forced to prove his worth. Tom's world seemed set, luxury, status, and an apparent disregard for how interconnected their struggles were. Ethan began to question if he had made any real headway in their unfolding narrative. However, with each word exchanged, a dynamic potential unfurled, a merging of histories that had been painstakingly crafted and yet again desperately sought to be redefined. Time slipped through his fingers, and he needed to steady this existential spiral. What if, Ethan proposed, a spark igniting within him, we capitalized on this, not as opponents locked in a battle of egos, but as co-creators of an experience? Let's transform this game into a force that challenges our perceptions. Let's explore why we choose these personas and how they've limited our opportunities. You might be surprised at what you find about yourself. Tom's brow furrowed, the flickering flame of intrigue battling with skepticism. You think I'm that easy to crack? You're talking about vulnerabilities that I've skirted around my entire life, Ethan. But what if you dug too deep? What if you find something you don't like? In the discomfort lies our potential for growth, Ethan countered, his words solidifying into a mantra. Imagine the courage it would take to uproot those narratives. The sacrifices we've made to fit into our respective boxes can rewrite the ending of our stories. The atmosphere thickened. This was more than a negotiation for change. It was a partnership formation, a shared leap into self-exploration, with every emotion ripe for discovery. Ethan sensed a rare opportunity blossoming. Either it would foster an alliance or shatter the fragile threads of their interactions. Tom swallowed hard, the internal battle reigning evident on his face. A hint of resolve lit up his features, yet so did fear. What would it take for him to acknowledge the truth? I've spent my entire life wearing these masks, Ethan, he confessed, the walls of bravado crumbling. But what if we plunge into this together and find nothing but broken pieces? Then we'll create something new from them, Ethan asserted, his eyes gleaming with fervor. Let's embrace the messiness. The world we've constructed is shattered already. This is our moment to decide how to rebuild. So, what's your move? The tension crackled between them like electricity, each shared glance pulling them closer to a precipice neither was fully prepared to grasp. Ethan felt a pulse of adrenaline as the realization dawned upon him. They stood on the verge of something radical, eager to take on the unknown, but it could also end in an unending cycle of hostility. As Tom's lips pressed into a tight line, consideration playing out across his brow, Ethan found himself clenching the edge of his armrest. Would Tom rise to meet this challenge, or retreat into the fortress of his long-held beliefs? The answer hung in the air, both exhilarating and terrifying, casting the entire chessboard into shadow and light. Time stretched, coaxing one last push for clarity as they bore witness to their battle within, a silent processing of possibilities. Would the future hinge on their decisions here and now, or would it dissolve into the familiar comfort of feigned antagonism? Whatever the outcome, Ethan understood one critical truth. This moment would either cement their fates or set the stage for an even deeper confrontation of self. Ethan held his breath, caught in the charged air of anticipation. As the seconds ticked by, uncertainty twisted inside him. Would Tom speak? Would he grasp the opportunity to step into a space of vulnerability? Or was their last-ditch attempt at connection destined to fail, lost in the mist of their ingrained facades? Finally, Tom's resolve cracked. "Okay, let's explore this," he said, the hesitant words tumbling out as if they were foreign to him. A tremor of excitement shot through Ethan. This wasn't merely an acceptance of a challenge, it was a willingness to unearth layers beneath their hardened exteriors. As the initial thrill ebbed, Ethan felt a nagging doubt creep into his consciousness. What if he pushed too hard? What if the shards of their discoveries hurt more than they healed? Yet, standing before Tom, he recognized that avoiding this confrontation would only reinforce the very structures they sought to dismantle. It was a crossroads, and Ethan became acutely aware of the weight of their collective histories, the privileges and struggles that defined their existences. "Let's begin," Ethan suggested, visualizing their journey as a chessboard filled with pieces waiting to move. "Why did you feel the need to adopt that mask? What drove you to craft a version of yourself that kept others at bay?" Tom's eyes flared with surprise at the directness of the question, but Ethan pressed on, the urge to dive deeper pulsating through him. "Because it's easier," Tom admitted, the mask slipping slowly, revealing cracks behind which lay fear and loneliness. "I could control how people saw me. If I became the grand strategist, I'd never be at risk of failure." His expression shifted from calculated to contemplative, the facade beginning to disintegrate. Ethan nodded, reinforcing a sense of safety in the intimate space they had crafted. "But in that control, didn't you also limit your connections? Were you truly happy?" The question landed like a stone in still water, rippling across Tom's mind. His gaze drifted, consumed by thoughts that seemed to weigh down his shoulders. "I've always been good at making deals and winning battles, but," he faltered, a flustered realization surfacing, "I don't know if that ever led me to something meaningful." A pang of empathy surged through Ethan. He had been there, on the cusp of reconciliation with his own insecurities. "That's the crux of our exploration, Tom. We're navigating through our own facades to reach something more authentic. A chance to be known for who we truly are, apart from the superficial strategies we wield." The engagement deepened, a taut line tethering them together through the rawness of the exchange. Each question dissected their motivations further, unraveling the persistent doubts tethered to their identities. With every revelation came a tremor of relief and trepidation, as if they were simultaneously exposing wounds while seeking the salve of understanding. Yet, with every layer they peeled back, Ethan could sense Thomas's reticence returning. Was this newfound honesty merely a comfortable exploration, or did Tom fear the vulnerability that could arise from true connection? "All right, Ethan," Tom said, drawing a breath. "If we're both willing to break these patterns, how do we shift from this moment into action? Talk is cheap." The challenge hung before Ethan like a bright beacon. Here was the difference. They weren't simply discussing a philosophical exercise anymore. They needed a tactical approach. "We put our insights into practice," he replied firmly, feeling the energy surge within. "We collaborate on a project that highlights our strengths and weaknesses, where our motivations are laid bare." As Tom absorbed his proposition, intrigue battled against caution. His body language revealed the internal struggle. Ethan knew he needed to amplify the stakes. "Imagine if we combined your strategic prowess with my adaptability. We could build something groundbreaking, one that doesn't just shift our realities, but challenges the perceptions of those around us." Tom hesitated, the corners of his mouth twitching with the resistance and the spark of ambition. "And what happens if we fail?" Ethan's heart raced. "Then we learn. We uncover the pieces to refine our efforts, and we get back in the game. Failure is simply another part of the evolution we're seeking." The air around them crackled with the possibility. The blend of fear and determination loomed larger than either had expected. Ethan could sense the tides shifting, the dance oscillating towards clarity rather than conflict. But the larger question echoed in his mind. What awaited them beyond this venture? Would this new alliance flourish into a profound friendship, or would it risk revealing darker truths neither was ready to face? As Tom readied his response, one thought pierced through the uncertainty. The balance between light and shadow often lay in their ability to navigate both. They stood on the edge of discovery, a collective leap into uncharted territory, one promising endless potential, yet fraught with peril. What would be the first move in this fragile new game? Ethan's anticipation thickened, wondering if Tom would embrace the challenge or retreat into the familiar embrace of strategy and isolation. Ethan's gaze held Tom's, And in that moment, a silent pact formed between them. The stakes surged, their vulnerabilities teetering on a precipice where both could potentially leap into a shared endeavor that could revolutionize their perception of themselves and each other. For Ethan, it was more than just a project. It was a potential foundation for a relationship redefined on real truths rather than pretense. "Let's start small," Ethan said, seeking a foothold for their commitment. "How about a presentation? We could pitch an innovative idea to our teams. It will showcase not just what we can do separately, but also what we can achieve together." Tom shifted, an imperceptible relaxation of his posture that signaled he was warming to the idea. "Okay," he conceded slowly, "but what's the theme? We can't just stroll in there and wing it." The suggestion prompted Ethan's thoughts to race. "Let's focus on collaboration," he proposed, his mind swirling with the possibilities. "We could highlight the necessity of connecting across different departments. We could incorporate a strategy where understanding team dynamics becomes a priority rather than sidelined." Tom nodded, the wheels slowly turning in his mind. Ethan could see a different layer of Tom starting to emerge, one that sought to engage rather than deflect. "All right," he finally affirmed, "but if we're doing this, we need metrics, something to quantify how well we're actually fostering connections." A grin broke through Ethan's anxiety. "Now you're speaking my language," he replied, the excitement between them palpable as it filled the room with newfound energy. The first day of planning ignited hours of brainstorming sessions that soon turned into discussions overflowing with insight. As they gathered data, neither could deny the synergy that thrived between them. The tactile excitement transformed into something deeper, merging their strengths and exposing their weaknesses. Ethan's creativity blended with Tom's strategic acuity to form a bridge, drawing out ideas neither could have fine-tuned alone. Yet amid the growing collaboration, fears lurked at the edges of Ethan's consciousness. What if the task became too big? Would they crumble under the pressure? The ghosts of their insecurities loomed large, and with the goal illuminated ahead, he couldn't ignore the undercurrents of doubt weaving into his mental framework. "Remember," Tom said one afternoon, sensing the tension in Ethan's demeanor, "this is about growth, right? We're diving into uncomfortable territory, and failure is an option." There was a kindness in his eyes, a recognition of the battleground they were navigating. "This project, it doesn't just hold potential for our teams. It's about us facing our fears together." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Tom's observation. That sting of reality wrapped tightly around his chest. "But what if I'm not enough?" he conceded, the admission souring like bitter medicine. "What if you're relying on me more than I can deliver?" Tom's brow knit in thought, as if weighing his response carefully. "Then we'll establish boundaries. If we pull back together. I've spent too long supporting an image. I want to support something more meaningful instead." The candidness of that moment washed over Ethan a sense of liberation. He felt the walls of his protected facade shift, realizing that their collaboration offered not just an opportunity for professional growth, but also personal evolution. As they prepared the presentation, something shifted in Ethan. The fear of failure transitioned into a burning determination to push through their limits. He didn't want to merely prove himself through the venture. He wanted to see how this exploration could shift his understanding of connection and success. Finally, they reached the night before the presentation, a tricky intersection of excitement and apprehension. Ethan fumbled with his notes, and the crackling anxiety permeated the still air of the room. "What if we hit a snag?" he whispered, themes of ambivalence thrumming between them. "Then we adapt," Tom replied firmly. "That's how we'll know we're really on the right path." Fueled by adrenaline and newfound confidence, Ethan caught sight of the first dawn breaking through their potential success. Yet, as he lay in bed that night, the thought nagged at him. What if they didn't deliver? The boundaries they'd set could easily be smashed before dawn's light, leaving them vulnerable and exposed. The moment they stepped into the conference room together would be revealing, a test not just of their project, but also of the fragile trust they had woven in their partnership.
Would this leap into authenticity resonate, or would the shadows of failure overshadow their hard-fought vulnerability? As the clock ticked, Ethan braced himself, the weighty question tolling in his mind. Were they ready to face the repercussions of true connection, whatever that might entail? Ethan entered the conference room, heart hammering against his chest. The polished table and sleek presentation screens radiated a corporate sterility that magnified his nervousness. Tom was leaning against the wall, flipping through his notes, a picture of calmness juxtaposed with Ethan's internal storm. They had put countless hours into shaping the presentation, yet the weight of expectation pressed heavily on Ethan's shoulders. As the board members filed in, Ethan's thoughts spiraled into a whirlwind of doubt. He could feel anxious energy vibrating off Tom, their shared nervousness palpable. Ethan's mind scoured possibilities, the what-ifs amplifying each passing moment. "Ethan, breathe," Tom murmured, breaking through the fog of his thoughts. "You've got this." The sincerity in Tom's voice grounded Ethan momentarily. He offered a tight smile, but the tremor in his hands betrayed him. When the room hushed and the spotlight turned toward them, Ethan locked eyes with Tom, and a quiet understanding passed between them. They were in this together, and, despite the fear, that connection sparked a flicker of determination within him. "Good morning, everyone," Tom began. "Today, we'll discuss a collaborative approach to breaking down silos within our organization." As Tom delved into their well-crafted outline, Ethan felt his anxieties begin to settle, at least for now. He was ready to lend his voice when the moment arrived. As the presentation
unfolded, he alternated between speaking and listening, weaving creativity with Tom's logic. When questions arose, he marveled at how they complemented each other. Tom's insights balanced Ethan's artistic flair. Each exchange was invigorating, a testament to their collective potential. Yet, doubt clawed at him from time to time. Could he maintain his footing? Was he truly adding value? These inner conflicts hummed in the background like an unsettling score, threatening to distort his clarity. Tom introduced Ethan, cueing him to unveil his part of the project. The moment felt monumental, an imbued pressure pressing on him. Standing there, he realized it wasn't just a project to redeem himself, but a chance to redefine his identity as a professional and as a partner. As he began presenting their collaboration framework, the words poured out. Ethan spoke with an authenticity he had almost forgotten existed, passionately outlining how his vision connected to a shared company goal. The board members leaned forward, intrigued. A growing confidence ignited within him, a feeling that maybe he had something valuable to offer after all. Midway through, a stark realization shot through him. He was not just Tom's collaborator, he was evolving into a co-architect of their shared future. When they posed probing questions, Ethan felt empowered to tackle them head-on. He deftly referenced metrics and feedback loops, no longer apprehensive about demonstrating his authority. When they concluded, applause resonated around the room, but Ethan didn't entirely process it. His thoughts were buoyed by something deeper, the recognition that vulnerability had transformed into courage, yielding a partnership built on truth. They had crafted something not just for their teams, but for themselves, too. As the meeting wrapped up, several board members approached them for further discussion. Ethan glanced over at Tom, who returned a look of pride, a shared victory that for once felt tangible. Yet, as they started to debrief, an unsettling question lingered in Ethan's mind. Had they truly succeeded, or was this merely an initial step in a far more complex journey? He sensed deeper layers of challenge lying ahead. Would they falter as the stakes heightened? "Are we ready for what's coming next?" Ethan wondered aloud, the words slipping out before he could filter them. Tom paused, an intense expression flickering across his face. "I think we're just getting started," he replied, a hint of apprehension and excitement mingling in his tone. For Ethan, that moment crystallized. This was not the end,
but the inception of an unraveling adventure, wrought with opportunities for personal and professional exploration. But just as clarity surfaced, an unexpected email pinged on Ethan's phone, a cryptic message hinting at an unexpected corporate reshuffle concerning their project. The implications sent a ripple of uncertainty through him as he realized this collaboration might soon encounter unanticipated obstacles. Ethan's heart raced as he read the email, the words blurring momentarily as the weight of uncertainty came crashing in. The corporate reshuffle could potentially jeopardize everything they had worked so hard for. Would their
project, built on newfound trust and collaboration, soon be swept away amidst the chaos? Yet, as the initial wave of panic subsided, a surprising clarity flooded over him. This was the critical juncture he'd been preparing for, not just a test of their work, but a test of the evolution he had undergone alongside Tom. This was no time for retreat. It demanded decisive action. "We need to prepare for an uphill battle," Ethan said, turning toward Tom, who looked equally shaken but resolute. "Let's regroup, reassess our strategy, and prepare to advocate for our project. This could either collapse or transform everything we've crafted." Tom looked at him, a spark igniting in his eyes. "You're right. We can't let uncertainty dictate our course. If this project is as valuable as we believe, we need to ensure it's recognized and supported." Fueled by their shared resolve, they spent days reworking their presentation to bolster its impact. They gathered data, crafted compelling narratives, and created a robust strategy to present the essence of their collaboration. Not just a project, but a vision that signaled the promise of changing the organizational culture. When the day came to present their revised pitch to the new management, Ethan felt a surge of confidence. This was not merely about defending their work. This was an affirmation of their growth and the evolution of their relationship. As they stepped into the boardroom, the sense of determination propelled them forward. "Ethan, you take the lead," Tom suggested. "This matter is close to your heart." Ethan smiled, feeling empowered by Tom's faith in him. He launched into the presentation, the words flowing smoothly as they intertwined the project's goals with the broader vision of the company. His passion reverberated off the walls, filling the room with undeniable energy as he painted a vivid picture of their vision. As the presentation unfolded, it became clear. Their collaboration wasn't just personal. It was a mirror for the organization's potential growth. They had demonstrated the power of connection, teamwork, and innovation, illuminating the path amidst uncertainty. At the end of the pitch, the room was silent. Ethan's palms felt sweaty, and doubt threatened to creep back in. But then applause erupted, enthusiastic and appreciative. The board members nodded in agreement. The new management expressed their support, excited not just about the project, but about the paradigm shift the collaboration represented. "We're willing to take a chance," one senior executive exclaimed, her eyes bright with intrigue. "Let's implement this framework company-wide." A wave of realization washed over Ethan. They had not only sold a project, they had opened the door to a culture redefined by dignity, respect, and acknowledgement for all employees, irrespective of background. In the aftermath of the meeting, as they walked out side by side, something profound shifted between Ethan and Tom. They were no longer merely participants on a chessboard. They were allies in an unfolding journey, two individuals who had transformed challenges into a launching pad. "Success. Ethan," Tom started, his voice steady with newfound respect. "I don't think I ever truly acknowledged your brilliance. You're a force to be reckoned with, and I shouldn't have underestimated you. Thank you for believing in our potential." Ethan felt a wave of warmth wash over him. "And thank you for realizing that, Tom. We're better together." As Ethan stepped out into the world beyond the corporate walls, he felt the heavy coat of invisibility peeling away piece by piece. The shadows of self-doubt that plagued him had dissipated, replaced by a bright sense of accomplishment. He had earned respect, not just from peers, but from himself. He realized he was not merely the son of a janitor, but a young man forged through resilience, capable of influencing change. "I've reclaimed my narrative," he reflected as he walked out, the sun shining brightly. "This is just the beginning." Ethan knew that the path ahead would consist of challenges, but they would no longer define him. He had emerged as a confident player in the game of life, ready to seize every opportunity that awaited him. Now it was time to dig deeper, to continue growing, to expand his reach and impact. This moment marked not just a victory in a game, but a significant achievement in his life, a turning point where he had conquered both chess and the confines of his previous identity. Transforming perceptions required not just the courage to play, but the tenacity to redefine the rules at every step. He embraced the journey ahead, fueled by determination, excitement, and an unyielding belief in the power of connection. This was his moment to shine, and he was ready for it. Now, I must urge you to not miss out on future exclusive emotional stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel to stay updated on our powerful narratives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice matters. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this life-changing conclusion. You need to show your support now. Don't wait even one more second. Now, I must urge you to not miss out on future exclusive emotional stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel to stay updated on our powerful narratives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice matters. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this life-changing conclusion. You need to show your support now. Don't wait even one more second.